In today's video, I will be providing you with a different look at the exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Using court testimony from her parents and the priests involved, I will be sharing the controversial story of a tormented young woman who underwent 67 exorcisms. I have used my AI powers to create some pretty amazing and terrifying visuals by using real photos of Anneliese, her family, and the priests. You will undoubtedly find parts of this video upsetting or disturbing. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21, 1952, in the small town of Klingenberg, Germany, and was raised in a strict Catholic family. Anneliese had 3 younger sisters, Gertrude, Barbara, and Roswitha. Her father, Joseph, was a Nazi soldier during World War II and ran a successful sawmill business. Her mother, Anna, helped with the business while raising 4 children. For the first 15 years of Anneliese's life, she was described as well-adjusted, cheerful, and deeply committed to her education and religious practices. In the autumn of 1968, when Anneliese was 16, she experienced her first seizure. A classmate found her in a trance-like state at school. Later that night, she awoke from sleep and could not move. She felt a strong force pressing down on her abdomen and urinated on her bed. She tried to call for help, but said her tongue felt paralyzed. This episode lasted for over 10 minutes. The following morning, Anneliese asked her mother if she could skip school and told her what had happened. Her mother dismissed the episode as a common illness. Almost a year later, Anneliese had her second seizure, which involved her blacking out during the day and a subsequent state of paralysis at night. She was referred to a neurologist, Dr. Siegfried Luthi, who found no apparent issues with her and could only suggest that Anneliese might be experiencing nocturnal cerebral seizures and presenting symptoms of grand mal epilepsy. Dr. Luthi advised further observation. At the beginning of the school year in September, Anneliese fell ill with pneumonia and tuberculosis, leading to her hospitalization and subsequent transfer to a sanatorium for children with lung diseases. After being held for 6 months, Anneliese had her third seizure. She was unable to call for help until finally belting out a loud scream, which caused the nurses in attendance and other girls held in the sanatorium to come running. A few days later, Anneliese was praying the rosary when she began experiencing feelings of euphoria, coupled with the aroma of violets. Some girls had been watching her pray. They interrupted her prayer and told Anneliese that her hands were contorted like a cat's paws and that her eyes appeared almost entirely black. Anneliese laughed it off. This was the best she had felt in months. She believed what had transpired was a blessing from the Virgin Mary. Shortly after, Anneliese was given more medical tests. The doctor recorded an EEG showing an irregular alpha pattern with some theta and delta waves, but nothing pathological. Given her prior history of seizures, she began taking anticonvulsant drugs. Mere days later, while in prayer, Anneliese tried to call up the same experience of euphoria that took place a week before. Instead, she had her first experience with fratzen, a condition in which a person will suddenly see a terrifying, grimacing face out of nowhere. From then on, Anneliese often felt apprehensive about praying the rosary, fearing that the monstrous face might reappear. Unfortunately, she would continue to see these faces for the remainder of her life. Through 1971 and 1972, Anneliese frequently missed school due to illness. Although her medical treatment generally worked, Anneliese experienced several things she did not report to the doctor. She had begun feeling stiffness throughout her body and smelling a horrible stench nobody else could perceive. Despite her horrifying experiences, Anneliese acted normally in between episodes. However, her behavior began to change significantly in 1973. Friends and family reported her as being irritable and withdrawn, often lashing out in anger. Anneliese descended into a deep and prolonged depression, expressing that she felt as though she was being manipulated by an external force, and that her will was no longer her own. Her visions of grimacing faces turned into overtly demonic faces with horns, telling her she would be damned for all eternity.
You are dead.
In the spring of 1973, Anneliese began hearing a knocking sound in her room. Her mother, Anna, hadn't heard any noises and brought Anneliese to the doctor, who could find nothing wrong with her. Soon after, Anna and her other daughters also began hearing sounds coming from the wardrobe, from the walls, and from underneath their wooden floors. Joseph, her father, dismissed these phenomena as products of hysteria, but he was disturbed by his wife's account of Anneliese. Anna said that she had seen her staring at a statue of the Virgin Mary, with a hateful look on her face. Her hands twitched and contorted into claws. Her eyes were black, jet black. During the summer of 1973, Anneliese went on a trip to a holy shrine at San Damiano in Assisi, Italy. The event was organized by Thea Hein, a family friend and church parishioner. Once there, Anneliese found she could not enter the shrine because the soil felt like fire beneath her feet. She said that some of the pilgrims who were praying looked like they were gnashing their teeth. Anneliese avoided looking at a picture of Christ and claimed that the pictures of saints shined so bright that she couldn't look at them. She also refused to drink from the well, which is considered to be miraculous. When the group boarded the bus to leave the shrine, Anneliese spoke to Thea Hein in a low voice and mocked her, then ripped off a religious medal she was wearing. More strikingly, many people on the bus reported the stench of something burning. In September of 1973, Anneliese visited Dr. Luthi and told him about her visions. She said that there was a devil in her, and a judgment of fire would come upon everyone. Dr. Luthi dismissed her experiences. This was the last time Anneliese would tell a doctor of her visions. Despite years of terrifying experiences, medical tests, and treatments, Anneliese was able to pass her demanding German school curriculum. But her visions and hallucinations had been intensifying. The family felt as if they were out of options, and Anneliese's mother contacted the church. Thea Hein, the church parishioner who had witnessed Anneliese's strange behavior in San Damiano, was reported to be the first to suggest demonic possession to the family. Frau Hein contacted an elderly Jesuit priest, Father Adolf Rodewick, in Frankfurt, Germany, about Anneliese's case. Father Rodewick was deemed an expert on possession, having published a book on the subject. The priest was unable to travel to Klingenberg and recommended a Father Hermann. Hermann met with Anneliese 10 times at his home, never witnessing anything unusual. He suggested that she seek a neurologist, but Anneliese vehemently declined, saying that she had spent years receiving treatment, and none of it has helped her. Late September 1973, Father Hermann met with a 35-year-old priest named Ernst Alt. Father Alt had already heard about Anneliese's case from Frau Hein, and had long had a deep interest in the paranormal. Father Alt claimed to have powers of telepathy, precognition, and even dowsing. The priest claimed that he was able to share Anneliese's experiences from afar, perceiving details that he had no way of knowing. He said he had seen her entire family before he had even met them, and perceived a kind of radiation from Anneliese's head during this vision. 2 days later, Father Herman handed Father Alt a letter from Anneliese. Father Alt instantly became nauseated and felt as if he were going to faint. He then experienced an overwhelming sense of excitement that he had never felt before. Later that evening, while praying for Anneliese, Father Alt claimed something hit him in his back, and the air turned cold. He said the intense stench of something burning filled the room. That night, when the priest was trying to sleep, he smelled a variety of stenches, alternating from dung, to sewage, to something burning. Father Alt then began hearing thumping in his wardrobe. He prayed to Padre Pio repeatedly, in order to vanquish whatever evil was causing this, when he suddenly smelled an intense fragrance of violets. The next morning, Father Alt told the other priests about what had happened, when everyone reported smelling a burning stench throughout the parish house. After his supernatural experiences, Father Alt would visit Anneliese. He stated that she appeared in no way sickly, and that she didn't mention possession. He said she presented as very serious, and showed high intelligence. Father Ernst Alt was also reportedly the first person to recommend demonic possession as a cause for Anneliese's behavior. Anneliese had dreams about becoming a school teacher, and despite her afflictions, began attending a university in Würzburg in the fall of 1973. After starting her classes, she received her first abnormal EEG reading, in which a doctor noted epileptic patterns. Anneliese would be prescribed a more potent medication called Tegretol, which is used to treat seizures and bipolar disorder. Although this would help with many of her symptoms, she would continue perceiving awful stenches and seeing hideous faces, which she never told her doctors about. Anneliese would meet a young man named Peter at a dance and fall in love. She told Peter of her condition, and he was sympathetic to her needs. In January 1974, she saw Father Alt less frequently because he had been moved to another parish, but she would stay in contact with him through the mail. Anneliese would begin playing tennis and the piano, while continuing to complete her college curriculum. However, by March, Anneliese was becoming socially withdrawn again. She told Father Alt that she could not pray unless trying really hard. She also claimed something was oppressing her. Anneliese's symptoms seemed to dissipate each time she visited Father Alt's parish house. As part of her studies, Anneliese had taught an arithmetic class of school children. She wrote a letter to Father Alt, expressing that she was not ready to become a teacher. Anneliese said that she had been feeling better, but felt disconnected from her surroundings. This led Father Alt to believe Anneliese was suffering from circumcessio, which is considered a mild form of possession, where a person is surrounded by evil forces, but not inhabited by them. Thea Hein had been pressuring Father Alt to request an exorcism, but Alt felt no need for doing so, because Anneliese's condition had improved considerably. However, the next time Anneliese visited Alt with her father, she was depressed and had poor muscle control. After praying over her for 20 minutes, Anneliese's behavior had noticeably improved. Encouraged by this positive response, Father Alt asked the local bishop, Joseph Stengel, for permission to conduct the rite of exorcism the next time Anneliese's behavior changed. The bishop denied his request, but told him to continue monitoring the young woman. Despite ongoing medical visits and adjustments to her treatment regimen throughout 1974 and early 1975, Anneliese's condition deteriorated, marked by increased social withdrawal and despair. While her symptoms occasionally improved, they resurfaced with greater intensity. Concerned family members and medical professionals explored various explanations, including neurological conditions and psychological disorders, but no treatment seemed to address the root cause of Anneliese's distress. When Father Alt visited Anneliese on July 1, 1975, she told him repeatedly that she was damned forever. Anneliese slowly walked as if she were on stilts, and it was apparent she had lost weight. During the priestly blessing, she had been silent, but Father Alt felt a cold radiating from her, so he prayed a rite of exorcism in his mind. Anneliese immediately jumped up as if in self-defense, screamed, and tore up her rosary. Before he left, Father Alt found a piece of paper with her handwriting. The writing became progressively unstructured.
I am a sinner. I have clearly recognized that in the chapel today, even if I imagined something different. I have no courage. Despaired. I am afraid that my priest, no trust. I am standing at the crossroads, either in life or death.
On July 31, 1975, Peter was visiting Anneliese at college when he witnessed her stare at a crucifix for over an hour. She reached for it with her arms, but acted as if a force was keeping her away. Peter said that her face was completely distorted, and that she growled like an animal. Following this alarming episode, Anneliese would return home. Her parents actively petitioned Bishop Stangl for an exorcism. Father Alt, who had requested the ritual be performed multiple times over the last 2 years, sought out the bishop on vacation and obtained oral permission to conduct a shortened version of the exorcism rite. During the shortened exorcism, Anneliese whimpered and moaned, expressing feelings of burning in her back and arms. At one point, she proclaimed that she was free, but continued to groan. The ritual lasted 2 hours. Although Father Alt believed the exorcism had helped, Anneliese became significantly worse and began demonstrating truly demonic behavior. She would run through the house, bucking up and down the stairs like a goat, and repeatedly kneel and stand at fantastic speeds until her knees swelled. Sometimes Anneliese would pray all day, repeating the words, "My Jesus, forgiveness and mercy, forgiveness and mercy." Other times, she would fall to the floor completely rigid, remaining in a catatonic state for days. Anneliese developed stigmata marks on her body, corresponding to the crucifixion wounds of Jesus Christ. She also began seeing clouds of flies and small creatures, which members of her family reported seeing as well. Anneliese destroyed religious objects around the house, urinated on the floor and licked it up, and put insects inside her mouth. The family contacted Father Rodewyk again, and the elderly priest finally came to see the girl for himself. When he arrived to the Michel residence, Anneliese was lying on the floor in a hypnotic trance. She was led to the sofa by her parents, and when asked her name, she replied with, "Judas." This made Father Rodewyk believe Anneliese was possessed by a Judas demon. not the human apostle of Christ, but a demon who forces its host to imitate the betrayal of the Lord. On September 16, 1975, given Father Alt's and Father Rodewick's testimonials, Bishop Stangl allowed for the whole rite of exorcism. The ritual involves a fixed sequence of prescribed prayers, which is then followed by directly questioning the demons, and concluded by demanding the demons to leave the body. This permission was granted to a Father Arnold Renz, a local pastor located near Klingenberg. Father Renz arrived at the Michel home on September 24, 1975. Initially, he found Anneliese to be normal and didn't notice anything that would indicate demonic possession. However, during the exorcism, Anneliese's behavior changed. Her body began to shake violently as she screamed and squirmed. 3 men had to hold her down to prevent her from harming others. Sprinkling her with holy water elicited screams and obscenity-filled demands for the priest to stop. Despite the intense 5.5-hour session, a lucid Anneliese insisted they should have continued, as she felt the exorcism was troubling the demons. Over the next 10 months, 67 exorcisms would be performed on Anneliese, usually 2 times a week, with each session lasting around 4 hours. During the sessions, Anneliese spoke using hideous screams, growls, and moans, uttering curses, and mocked the exorcist. She described feeling her own personality being suppressed into a hole, while something controlled her body and speech. The entities within her gradually introduced themselves during the exorcisms. Fleischmann, a medieval priest, Hitler, Nero, Cain, Judas, and Lucifer, the devil itself. Father Renz tested the linguistic ability of the demons by questioning them in Chinese, but they wouldn't respond. Although they did respond in Latin and Dutch, the demons demanded the priest to speak in German. In another test, Father Renz filled 5 bottles with water, some containing tap water, and the others holy water. Though the bottles were unmarked, the demons screamed only when the holy water was used. 42 cassette recordings captured many of Anneliese's exorcisms. I am about to play 1 minute of audio from one of these sessions. This will be a little terrifying.
Es muss gebet werden. Warum? In den Kirchen. Und in den Familien. Und vor allem den Scheißen. Ja! Soll da schon nichts mehr, oder der Gift hoffen. Du, der sagt wieder. Nein! Ich bin Nero! Ich bin der Dritte im Bunde! Noch mehr. So. Sie müssen mit in eine Scheißkassette.
In October of 1975, Anneliese began receiving messages directly from the Virgin Mary, which she wrote in her diary. Her family believed it was a trick of the devil, but the demons within Anneliese cursed the writings. She also began receiving messages from Jesus Christ, telling her that she would become a great saint and get married. The Virgin Mary told Anneliese that she would be completely free at the end of October. Upon learning of the messages from the Virgin Mary, Father Renz thought of Barbara Weigand, a seer from Germany, who had turned her sufferings into personal penance. Father Ernst provided Anneliese with Barbara's writings, and not long after, Anneliese wrote in her diary that Barbara told her that she would experience a great deal of suffering. On Friday, October 31st, during an exceptionally long exorcism, the demons said they'd leave at 10 o'clock. Anneliese shrieked and screamed, cursed at the priest, and conveyed a message to her family from the Virgin Mary, saying that she was proud of everyone. At 10 o'clock, the demons left Anneliese's body one by one, with each demon exclaiming, "Hail Mary, full of grace," before departing. The priests and family sang a German hymn to celebrate, when Anneliese let out a terrible scream, saying, "I have not left yet." This demon would not give its name, and said it had never revealed itself before. Father Ernst spent 3 more hours trying to cast out the demon to no avail. Anneliese returned to school a week later and passed an exam. Her messages from Jesus continued, telling her to trust in his grace. During an exorcism on November 9th, the unknown demon within Anneliese revealed itself to be Judas, and said that 4 other demons had returned with the Virgin Mary's permission. Over the following months, Anneliese continued attending college and renewed her Tegretol prescription. She rarely experienced any demonic episodes outside of the exorcisms and kept her condition a secret from her classmates. By May of 1976, Anneliese had stopped taking her medication. She weighed under 100 pounds, refused to eat, sleep, or even lie in bed. She told Father Alt that the Virgin Mary said she'd be free by July, and believed she was experiencing the death agony of Christ. Anneliese returned home from college, and Father Ernst would continue the exorcisms. The demonic entities no longer revealed themselves, and when provoked, Anneliese responded with unintelligible mechanical screams. Her behavior also became increasingly violent, with extreme episodes of rage and screaming. Anneliese would bite herself and cracked her teeth by biting walls. She was claimed to exhibit superhuman strength, as she reportedly threw her sister clear across the room. When Father Alt visited Anneliese on July 8, 1976, she was incapable of ordinary speech. Anneliese was severely malnourished, but was still consuming fruit juices and milk. However, she spit out any solid food they tried to feed her. She said the demons wouldn't let her eat. Anneliese never saw Father Alt again. On June 30th, 1976, Anneliese insisted on repeatedly kneeling during the exorcism. She had caught pneumonia and had a fever of 102 degrees. She pleaded to Father Ernst to end her suffering. Her final words to him, "Please, absolution." Her parents stayed with her as she began screaming and thrashing about. At midnight, the priest commanded the demons to leave in the name of God. After the exorcism, Anneliese told her mother she was scared and quietly turned onto her right side and fell asleep. Anneliese Michel passed away in the morning hours of July 1st, 1976, at the age of 23. She weighed 68 pounds. Her body was covered in bruises